Forbidden Visions: Why They Killed the Last Prophet of the Carpathians. On a freezing March morning in 1987, in the remote Carpathian Mountains on the border between Romania and Ukraine, an archaeological discovery would forever change our understanding of ancient prophecies and political power. What began as a routine excavation searching for medieval artifacts transformed into the greatest mystery of the 20th century, involving forbidden manuscripts, apocalyptic visions, and a conspiracy that reached the highest echelons of European power. The international team, led by archaeologist Dr. Victor Petrescu, was not prepared for what they would find in that cave hidden 1,200 meters above sea level. Among ancient stones and strange symbols carved into the rocky walls, they discovered the mummified body of a man in a prayer position, surrounded by dozens of scrolls written in a language that mixed Old Slavic, Latin, and symbols never before seen by modern science. But it wasn't just the discovery of the manuscripts that shocked the researchers. It was the devastating content of the prophecies they contained. Detailed visions of future events that, when compared with historical records, proved to be frighteningly accurate. The mummified man wasn't just any hermit. He was Miroslav the Seer, known in local legends as the last great prophet of the Carpathians, killed under mysterious circumstances in 823 AD. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because what you're about to discover about Miroslav's manuscripts will completely change your perception of how power really works in the world. Leave your like if you have the courage to learn truths that have been hidden for over 1,000 years. The scrolls found in the cave contain something that made archaeologists fall into silent panic. They weren't just prophecies about the past. They were detailed visions of events yet to come. Miroslav had documented with surgical precision the fall of the Byzantine Empire, the Crusades, the Black Death, the discovery of America, the 2 world wars, and something even more disturbing, specific events that would occur in the 20th and 21st centuries. Dr. Petrescu, in his personal notes that only came to light decades later, described the feeling of terror he experienced when reading the prophecies about the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and political events that would happen exactly as Miroslav had predicted 8 centuries earlier. But there was something even more shocking in the manuscripts, an entire section dedicated to a great revelation that would happen at the end of the 20th century, involving the discovery of his own writings and the catastrophic consequences this would bring to those who tried to suppress them. The prophet had predicted his own discovery. He knew his manuscripts would be found in 1987, knew who would find them, and more terrifyingly, knew exactly who would try to silence this discovery and why. In his words, translated from Old Slavic, "The children of the children's children find these words, the lords of darkness will again try to silence the light of truth, as they did to me. But this time, the truth cannot be buried, for it will be scattered like seeds in the wind." Within 48 hours of the initial discovery, something extraordinary happened. Authorities who had never shown interest in medieval archaeology appeared at the excavation site. They weren't just local officials. They were representatives of international agencies, men in suits on a frozen mountain, speaking different languages, but all with the same urgency. The manuscripts needed to be confiscated immediately for national security reasons. What these authorities didn't expect was that Dr. Petrescu, sensing trouble, had already photographed and partially translated the most important documents, and what he discovered in the translations made him understand why so many powerful people were desperate to keep these writings secret. Miroslav hadn't just prophesied historical events. He had named specific lineages, families that would maintain power through the centuries, control methods that would be used over populations, and more shockingly, he had described in detail how certain groups would use fabricated crises to consolidate political and economic power. The manuscripts contain names, dates, and methods that, if true, would reveal patterns of manipulation extending over more than 1,000 years. But there was one specific prophecy that explained all the desperation to silence the discovery. Miroslav had predicted that at the end of the 20th century, an information age would allow these truths to spread instantly across the world, making it impossible for the Lords of Darkness to maintain their control based on secrecy. He had predicted the internet, social networks, and how they would be used both to spread truths and sow confusion. In June 1987, just 3 months after the discovery, Dr. Victor Petrescu died in a car accident on the mountain road leading back from the excavation. His assistants were transferred to projects in different countries, and all manuscripts officially disappeared. During transport to a museum in Bucharest, the excavation was permanently closed and the area was declared geologically unstable for future research. But Miroslav had predicted exactly this. In a section of the manuscripts that Dr. Petrescu managed to translate before his death, the prophet wrote, "They will kill the messenger as they killed me. They will hide the words as they hid mine. But the seeds will have already been planted, and the truth will grow in soil they cannot control." And that's exactly what happened. Before his death, Petrescu had sent copies of the photographs and translations to colleagues in different countries. These documents circulated discreetly in the academic community for years, creating an underground network of researchers who continued studying Miroslav's prophecies in secret. What they discovered was even more disturbing. The prophecies weren't just accurate about the past, they were being fulfilled in real time. Political and economic events of the 90s and 2000s happened exactly as Miroslav had predicted, including specific financial crises, regional conflicts, and technological changes that would transform society. If you've made it this far, leave a like, because you're about to discover Miroslav's most disturbing prophecies about our current time. And subscribe to the channel, because we're going to reveal more secrets that have been hidden from humanity for centuries. Among Miroslav's most shocking prophecies were visions about what he called the Age of the Great Awakening. According to his writings, between 2020 and 2030, humanity would go through a series of crises that would serve as catalysts for a collective awakening about the real nature of power in the world. The prophet described a pestilence that would come from the east and would be used by the Lords of Darkness to implement controls over the population that would be unthinkable in normal times. He predicted that people would be forbidden to gather, work, travel, that they would accept these restrictions voluntarily out of fear of a disease that, according to him, would be less deadly than the terror they would sow around it. But Miroslav also predicted that this same crisis would reveal the true face of power to millions of people. He wrote about a great network of instant communication where people would share information faster than controllers could suppress it. He predicted that authority figures would contradict themselves publicly, that the media would lose credibility by being exposed lying repeatedly, and that this would lead to a massive questioning of all institutions. Most impressive is that Miroslav described specific technologies that would only exist more than 1,000 years after his death. He spoke of magic boxes where people would see and talk to others on the other side of the world, of infinite books that would contain all human knowledge, could be accessed instantly, and of how these technologies would be used both to free and enslave the human mind. Hashtag the final prophecy and its fulfillment. The most disturbing prophecy of Miroslav was about his own fate and how it would repeat throughout history. He wrote that he was killed not for being a religious heretic, but because his visions revealed the control methods that certain lineages would use to maintain power through the centuries. According to the manuscripts, Miroslav was approached by emissaries of powerful families of his time who wanted to use his prophetic abilities to consolidate their own power. When he refused and began prophesying publicly about these families' manipulation, they declared him a dangerous heretic and orchestrated his death. But before dying, Miroslav had his clearest vision. He saw that in modern times, when his manuscripts were discovered, the same pattern would repeat. Authorities would try to suppress his prophecies, not because they were religious blasphemies, but because they would reveal control methods that were still being used. The prophecy said that his death and the subsequent cover-up of his visions would serve as final proof that his words were true. If they did not fear the truth, they would not need to silence the prophet, he wrote. The very act of hiding these words will confirm their veracity to those who have eyes to see. Today, more than 3 decades after the original discovery, Miroslav's prophecies continue to be fulfilled with disturbing accuracy. Independent researchers who had access to clandestine translations of the manuscripts have documented dozens of predictions that came true exactly as the prophet had described. Even more intriguing, some of the prophecies about our current time include details about how Miroslav's own story would eventually be revealed to the public. He predicted that his visions would spread through storytellers who would use the great network to reach millions of people simultaneously, bypassing traditional methods of information control. The prophet wrote about a generation that would grow up questioning everything, that would not accept truths imposed by authorities, and that would use the very tools of their controllers to spread forbidden knowledge. He predicted this would create a period of great turbulence, but would eventually lead to an awakening that would fundamentally change the relationship between rulers and ruled. According to Miroslav, we now live in the years he called the time of the great choice, when humanity must decide whether it will continue accepting being controlled through fear and disinformation, or whether it will awaken to its own power to discern truth independently of what it is told by authorities. If you manage to absorb all of this, leave your like and subscribe to the channel, because you are part of that generation Miroslav predicted, those who would no longer accept being deceived. Share this video so more people can learn this story they tried to hide from us for over 1,000 years. The last prophecy translated from Miroslav's manuscripts contains a direct message for our time. When these words reach the ears of the children of the instant communication age, know that the time to awaken has come. Do not believe in me because I am a prophet. Investigate for yourselves. Question everything. Trust in your own ability to discern the truth. The lords of darkness maintain power only as long as people believe they have no choice. But each person who awakens to the truth weakens the chains that bind humanity. The final prophecy is not about the future. It is about the present. It is about you choosing to be free. Miroslav's mummified body was never found after the official confiscation. The original manuscripts remain missing, but his words, as he himself predicted, spread like seeds in the wind of the digital age, reaching exactly those for whom they were intended, people like you, who have the courage to question, investigate, and think for themselves. The question Miroslav left for our generation is simple. If they had nothing to hide, Why would they kill the messenger? And if you've made it this far, perhaps you already know the answer. Click like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell for more revelations they tried to hide from you. The truth can no longer be silenced.